Our story begins in a small rural town somewhere in the Midwest. A family sits down to dinner while the local news is on in the background. The family bows their heads as the little sister leads the family in prayer. The kids' clothes are hand me downs from cousins that live just down the road and are stained from an afternoon exploring the woods. Within this small interaction, we can see several aspects of culture working together to set our scene. Let's take a moment to rewind. The family prayer before dinner? That's a religious ritual that is common practiced amongst many American Christians, the dominant religion and belief system in this part of the country. The kids' clothes? Hand me downs from cousins, due to rural areas being perhaps of lower income where families must be more resourceful and likely have extended family members living within driving distance. The way this family interacts is an example of local culture or a micro community that exists within a somewhat smaller community. The smaller community exists in a state, which exists in a region, which exists in a country, and so on and so forth. This would have us believe that local culture works like a domino effect and ultimately impacts the global culture, right? Well, not exactly. The family prays together, a practice utilized around the world throughout many countries. They sit around a table and enjoy the meal together. These are all examples of global culture that are shared practiced around the world and have evolved to fit the local culture. This then begs the question, does the local influence the global, or does the global influence the local? Let's take a look at another story. The 2018 Winter Olympics. During the 2018 Winter Olympics, Norway set a new record for the most medals won by a single nation at the Winter Olympics. The Norwegians have dominated the Winter Olympics for decades, winning over 300 medals since the beginning of the Games. This has led many to ask the question, what is it exactly that makes them so successful?
To see how the typical Norwegian kid gets their start, we visited a youth skiing club in Lillehammer on a typical Tuesday night. It seemed that every child in town was there. It's cold, it's about 15 degrees, it's 7 o'clock at night. I see, a couple hundred kids out here.
Yeah, this is quite normal.
Per Vangen helps run the program, which costs a mere $60 for 6 months of skiing fun. Norwegian officials require that sports program costs are kept low so that all kids can participate.
And we send the invoice only once. If you're not able to pay, you can still come.
And if somebody doesn't send in a check,
that's okay.
You don't bother them.
No, we don't bother them.
The coaches here are not expensive professionals, but volunteers, like Dr. Christian Holm. How would you assess the talent out here? Because I see some kids who look very skilled and others not so much.
I don't like the word talent. I think those are skilled. They have been doing lots of skiing since they were very small. And those who are not so talented, as we see them now, if they do skiing a lot until they are 15, 16, you might not see any difference.
Dr. Holm told us that the kids here do race, but the times and rankings are not kept. Do you share the times with them, the results?
In Norway, it's not allowed to have lists where we order number one, number two, number three.
You can't rank them.
Not before the age of 12. And that's that's not allowed in Norway for kids.
And the emphasis on fun? Well, that was pretty obvious.
If the fun part is not essential, they will get tired of it. And they will just stop doing it. So we have to have fun. And skiing is fun. It's one of the most fun things you can actually do.
This is an example of how the microculture within Norway works its way up to the global cultural level, with athletes competing on the world's biggest stage. The Olympics, however, are also a prime example of global culture influencing the local. The Olympics demonstrate our global fascination with sports and where we can reach common ground as a global community. With millions of viewers each year, the Olympics have been an exciting time across hundreds of countries. Sports in general are a huge aspect of many local cultures across the world, and the Olympics serve as a culmination of all the local cultures and our global fascination with sports and athletes. This works as a feedback loop that people see athletes competing at the highest level and aspire to that. This is how the Olympics are a prime example of how the local culture helps to create the global culture, and that the global culture influences the local culture. I have seen how this has impacted my own local culture as softball continues to yo-yo in and out of the Olympic stage. This causes many to question the legitimacy of the sport on a global scale and creates a certain perception of the sport within my own local culture. It takes away role models and creates a lack of space for women to compete at one of the highest levels. However, because softball is not a popular sport throughout the globe in the same way something like running or soccer would be, this causes it to go in and out of the Olympics. This is why I believe the Olympics serve as a prime example of how the culture is not this linear idea that works like a domino or pyramid effect, with local culture being the foundation and the global being at the top, but rather is a continuous loop with the local culture and the global constantly influencing one another. Culture is like a continuously moving wheel that is always rolling forward as our society advances.